So welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We start on the DXY on the daily time frame. We had some volatility last week during the US election. That was kind of expected. We also were expecting for dollar to stall in this area. We approached this area of interest already a week ago and were already expecting for dollar to accumulate a little bit more volume to then on balance still having a bias for a stronger dollar in the near future. On the lower time frame, we see we were discussing actually this liquidity area here, and we see dollar formed a bull flag into this area and then broke out to the upside. So at the moment, this could already be enough for dollar then to just continue next week. But I would not be surprised if it might take a little bit more time and dollar coming back one more time into this area here, forming a bigger consolidation to accumulate more volume for the next leg up. So keep in mind, this is quite a move. This is still like more than 1.5% to move. So that might take a week or two to actually get into this area if the catalyst from the election is not enough to move it already. We can see that also on the other dollar related pairs. We go to Euro US dollar and start on the 4-hour time frame here. We see that in the beginning of the week, euros continued to climb a little bit and then started to aggressively roll over during election. This was here more a squeeze of price. So there is no clear liquidity point here we can mark, or we have to mark for price to then really justify the turnaround here. It was really the catalyst of the election which then moved this to the downside. We are now somewhere in between on sitting kind of this low here, the previous low, and price is forming a bigger structure. So right now I'm not really keen to trade in between here in no man's land. Going here to the 1-hour time frame, of course it is always possible, and if price is giving me a very clean 1, 2, 3 structure, a bear flag continuation structure, of course I would entertain a short here because I have enough room to manage it to this previous low. But I would prefer for price to either break through this low and then retest this area in form of a bear flag continuation and then entertain a short in this area, or if the DXY is getting weaker and retesting the third base as we discussed before, then euro could also move one more time up and retest this high here and give us like a kind of a bigger, more complex structure before we then sell off in this area. Moving on to Australian dollar, US dollar, going here to the 4-hour time frame as well. We were looking actually after this longer squeeze here into this low here and then forming a bigger expanding structure. We were looking for continuation shorts already. So I discussed the trade which was in here in the trade review, a higher risk trade before the election, which I took last week, which ended up in a loss. But overall, we are still on balance, Australian dollar, US dollar short. We see price after election had to come up one more time to grab more volume in another area before then starting to aggressively sell off towards the end of the week. So we had quite an aggressive sell-off on Friday. Going down to the 1-hour time frame, we are here as well in no man's land. This move was with full body candles, so very, very impulsive, and it did not leave any clue. Price did not leave any clues on the way down, and it's also not really turning around in an area of significance. We could say that here we have an area of interest, this previous small low, but it's not very strong. So I would on balance still lean more towards a short, and if price is now building a second proper base and giving me a proper structure, I would entertain a short in this area because it's easy manageable to the low here. So it goes a bit in line with euro, US dollar and the other dollar related pairs. So in case we are still in momentum and the DXY would move higher early next week already, we might get a small continuation flag in this area and could then participate in this short here. New Zealand dollar, US dollar looks very, very similar. We have this on watch for a while. We see also, we discussed this area here, the squeeze and how New Zealand dollar was respecting structure quite well. It tapped into a more significant area of interest here, a liquidity point, sold off, and in this case, actually, price during this impulsive move to the downside, it left a small clue here. We go here shortly to the 15 minutes and we see price here left a small continuation flag, a small liquidity point on the way down. Not like Australian dollar, US dollar, where it just rushed to the downside. So in this case, this gives us some clue where price might snap back. So I'm on balance still leaning to the short, of course, but seeing this liquidity point, I would not be surprised for price to come back up and testing this one more time. So if I get that in form of a V shape, I would entertain a short in this area, but it would have to be a higher time frame entry, something like a 4-hour entry or something more weighted time frame, or then a clear rejection on the 1-hour time frame and this continuation flag on the lower time frame to then entertain a short. And alternatively, if price takes a bit more time and is forming a structure into this liquidity point, then even better, and I would then entertain a short entry in this area. US dollar, Canadian dollar is on watch for a while as well. I took some longs on the way up and we were changing bias last week. We said we are approaching, I shortly go to the daily to see show you the bigger picture. We are approaching this higher time frame value area in form of this ascending wedge here. And we were saying last week already that we might change bias and then see price tapping into this value area and then entertain a short. As it stands now, we did not tap into this value area and it seems like price is forming a bigger, more complex structure. We do have a quite significant liquidity point here. This was this structure here, the start of the structure, and then a continuation here, which then would be the first base for a bigger bull flag. We have a second low here, and if price is coming back down one more time and then basically forming a bigger bull flag continuation, I would entertain a long in this area to finish the last leg into the value area. However, we have to say, if price is really forming such a deliberate bull flag continuation structure and accumulating so much volume here, then the chances are that price will overshoot here quite significant before then turning around, which would also be in line with the overall stronger dollar in the near future. So that would fit the bill. On the other hand, if we see the DXY continue early next week and we see the same here in US dollar, Canadian dollar, and price is just overshooting the value area and then moving back in and giving us a continuation back in the structure, I would entertain a short in this area. Then US dollar, Swiss francs, US dollar, Swiss francs as well was on watch for a while for a long. We then see that price started to lose momentum here and then finally got an impulsive move into this area of interest and is now forming a consolidation on top of this previous area of interest here. So I'm looking now for price to at least giving me a more structured two-touch continuation. We are here on the 4-hour, I'm going down to the 1-hour. So I would like to see for price to form a second base here and giving me a nice rejection candlestick formation in this area, then I would entertain a long for the long continuation overall. Euro Australian dollar and Euro New Zealand dollar are both very, very similar. If we say on balance, we see a more risk on approach, that would mean Euro, Australian dollar, and Euro, New Zealand dollar would continue to weaken in the near future. They are both a bit more complex price action at the moment. Starting here on the, maybe it's even better, we start on the weekly. We see on balance we had quite a bearish week, right? So we are switching bias on these pairs quite regularly, but as it stands right now, the bias is again switching more towards a short, a weakening, seeing on the daily that we are undecided. We finished the week undecided with this strong bullish Friday close, right? So still on a week, but overall still a strong close. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, or even better to the 1-hour time frame, we have a structure here, and we saw price coming back up and retesting this structure. So at the moment, I need clear price action confirmation. So as it stands, I would like to see some momentum play early next week, and then giving me a small bear flag continuation pattern on the lower time frame. I would entertain a short here, which is manageable to the low, right? So because we still have this area of interest here, and this is a back testing of the low. So in case we get a more complex, bigger structure, that would still be in line, right? So we could manage that and then end up with the break even somewhere in this area in case price would take more time and then forming a more complex structure in this area here over the next 1 to 2 weeks. So I'd like to see a bit more clear price action before I entertain anything for both pairs. Euro New Zealand dollar, very, very similar, has a bit more structure overall. We see on the 4-hour time frame that turnaround was a bit late, but it is still within this bigger ascending wedge here into this smaller area of interest. It did not tap into the bigger value areas here on the higher time frame, but we can clearly see it is kind of respected this structure and then sold off aggressively, retested the structure, left a small low here, and then is now in a continuation. So that's what we are looking for. We are looking for a continuation confirmation. And in this case, I'm going to the 1-hour time frame. We see that this small high here, this liquidity point, was retesting this low and is now forming a bigger structure. So I'd like to see a second base here for a structure, and then one more time up for either a slight expanding structure or at least retesting this high here again towards next week, and then entertaining a short in this area. So we have Australian dollar, yen. The yen pairs are on watch for a while as well, and they finally tapped into the areas we were looking for. So we had Australian dollar, yen waiting for price to tap into this small bear flag continuation here. This was the only structure at the beginning of the last impulsive leg down. So we had this on watch here, and we tapped into this area and then started to sell off quite aggressively. So I now like to see for price to form a bigger continuation pattern, at least a 2-touch continuation pattern. So I need another base and price to retest something like that on the 1-hour time frame, which then allows me to manage it to the low. There is more than enough room to manage also in case we don't get that and price is just breaking below this low and then forming a continuation, a bigger one here. That would also be completely fine. We then left this bigger structure here. Price would then basically confirm the breakout of all this price action here, and the last line in the sand would be this low here. And if we get enough volume accumulation here, that would then also be more than enough volume to price eventually breaking this previous low here as well. So nothing to rush here, waiting for clear price action confirmation. The same goes for, or something similar goes for Swiss francs yen. We were tapping into the area, into this area of interest we were looking for, but however last week it was on watch for a long. I was actually expecting for price to turn around in this area, and initially it also looked like we might see a confirmation of the bull flag continuation. We did not. Price then started to sell off more aggressively towards the end of the week and broke completely out of this bigger structure here. So with that closing here, I'm leaning more to a short continuation here. Going to the 1 hour time frame, we see after the break and then the basically finishing of the third touch for the bull flag, price came up one more time and did retest this low here and sold off quite aggressively. So what I then like to see on the 15 minutes, we see that here the 15 minute is giving us a clue. We have here a small liquidity point here on the 15 minutes, which is also aligning with this initial first sell off through this area of interest we had on watch initially. So I'd like to see for price to form a clear continuation structure in form of a 1, 2, 3 into this smaller 15-minute liquidity point, and then I would entertain a short in this area here. On the other hand, actually the short would be in place as long as we are below this line here. On the other hand, if we suddenly see a change in momentum again early next week and price is impulsively moving back into structure and then forming a bull flag continuation on top of, like, through this price level, or preferably on top of the price level, then I would change my bias again and would entertain a long again. But right now, I'm leaning more to a short here in Swiss francs yen. Yeah, that's it. That's my watch list for next week. So thanks for watching. See you next week. Bye-bye.